One of the things that I kind of really enjoy teaching students like you is you actually remind me of myself a lot. A lot of you guys like myself who grew up in the third world, and not that this first world is different in terms of its values, but I guess we come from a climate where there's this social expectancy to serve and to help everybody else. So, I guess I've wrestled with that, right? It led me to teaching. It led me to this series. I was wondering how did it affect like your career choice, and is that something you think about, or is it just me?
No, definitely. So I was born in Cuba, and then before coming here, I actually lived in Nicaragua too. So I've gotten a little bit both of Cuba and Nicaragua,
Right.
which are very different. But I mean, I'm choosing medicine, and the reason why I have chosen medicine is because it's to give back also to my community. Like I plan on going back to Cuba and Nicaragua as well, definitely, and just helping out the people there through my career. And definitely, I know within medicine, for example, in Miami, we might not have seen it that much, but it's very comfortable for patients to have physicians that can relate to them.
Right.
And I understand that very well.
Is that something you experienced even when you were in Miami?
Definitely,
Okay.
yeah. So definitely I want to be one of those physicians that can connect a little bit better to patients, especially Hispanic patients or patients that minorities in general, just because I know what they've been through, and I think I can understand them a little bit better, definitely.
Well,
I think it will make the experience better.
I hope we've connected to you a little bit here at FIU as well. So anyway, thank you.
No problem.
So welcome everybody, and welcome Dr. Peña. Dr. Peña is from University of Florida and works at the Tropical Research and Education Center located in Homestead, Florida. And we really appreciate you being with us here today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So your interest lies in insects, and I think in particular with mites.
Yes, mites are my preferred ones.
And how did you get interested in mites?
Well, it was by accident, I think. I was more interested in plant physiology, but I was offered a summer job when I was doing my bachelor's of science in agronomy to work with insects, and well, I started getting more and more interested in that, and then I was hired to basically count mites, and I was counting mites through several weeks, and I just became fascinated by them. I guess that's the start of the career. Yeah.
You had a lot of patience.
Yes.
Counting mites. That's really, and so you've been studying mites since then. And what is it about the mites that's interesting?
Well, I think they are so minute, and so most of them, it's difficult for you to see them with the naked eye, and you have to have some hand lenses or microscope and stereoscope to really find them. And with some of them, it's still very difficult for you to find, and most of the time you find the damage, but you don't find. So they're kind of elusive to be found. So it's just an incognita, and you just want to find something. It's the adventure, I think, that what keeps me there.
And so this is damage to?
Damage to, could be to leaves or to fruits. And since I work with tropical fruit, regularly mites that they have not been found by somebody else, or somebody has linked the damage with a different, saying that the mites are doing the opposite thing is what I'm really going to find in the long way. And sometimes you find a species that has not been reported in this country. So it's always a surprise.
So there's a lot of mystery involved.
Yeah, for me, yeah.
And and in general, how did you get involved? How did you get interested in science? Were you fascinated by bugs as a child?
Not really. I think it was a normal fascination, but I think it was mostly I wanted to work outdoors, or to study in the field, or things that plants, or anything that revolves around plants, and that's how I became interested in that. But I think the science process It was basically through my first summer job that I saw what the researchers were doing, and I just basically learned from them. To me, it was fascinating.
And what was your first summer job?
My first summer job was at the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture in Cali, Colombia. And I was working with a pest of cassava, but I have to find from the biology of the insect the damage that it was causing. So it was just a discovery process.
Mm-hmm. And it was affecting the cassava, the plant
Yes,
itself?
yes,
or?
the plant itself. It was affecting mostly the buds of the plant and causing heavy mortality on the plant.
And how do you study something that grows? It grows under the ground, correct?
Well, the root, of course, grows into the ground, but the fly that was studying the aerial part of the plant, it was what it was affecting. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And so when did you come to the States?
I came to the States in 1977 to the International Center for Tropical Agriculture gave me a scholarship to pursue my master's degree. And so I came to the University of Florida for that. In entomology to study insects. Yeah.
Okay, so you went, so your bachelor's degree, if I remember correctly, was in agronomy.
In agronomy, did many subjects, what's they will say, master of many subjects, specialist in none.
Right, right.
Yeah, so that's basically what it was. But after the years in the Tropical Research Center, I remember that I had an argument with my supervisor, and basically I was right, he was wrong. Uh-huh. But he said, yeah, but I have the degree and you don't. And I said, there's something about that.
A little motivation there.
There was a little motivation, yeah. He died this year, by the way.
Oh.
But we remain very good friends.
Yeah. And he sounds like he sort of helped your path along.
I think he does. Absolutely, he did. Yes. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So you were a young man when you came.
Oh,
and
that was a long time ago.
A long time ago. And so you left your family in Colombia, or did everybody immigrate with you?
No. My family stayed in Colombia, of course. My mother, my father,
and it was the days before Skype.
That's right.
And the days before. So is it difficult for you to get used to the American ways? Because you went from Cali, Colombia, to Gainesville, Florida.
At that time, coming to Florida is kind of a strange feeling, most of all because you seldom see people on the streets. Mostly what you see in Florida are cars. But human beings, you see them inside of malls, but you don't see it walking on the streets. So it was, I grew up in a city where people were walking the streets, and here the only thing you see are cars, basically, except in Gainesville, because there are so many students, and then you see all these human beings around you.
No, it's a very interesting.
So it was an uneasy feeling, I think, but interesting.
And were you proficient in English when you got?
Of course not. I mean, I'm not proficient now. So.
Well, no, but you speak quite well.
I was even worse then. But again, there was an advice from another person from the Center for Tropical Agriculture. He told me never to find a roommate that spoke Spanish because I would never learn to speak English. So I did that. So it was a good advice.
That was very good advice and very difficult to follow, I would imagine.
It was at the beginning, but we had to communicate with the roommates, and some of them were from Iran, from China, Greece. So
there were others in a similar situation.
Yeah, they have to speak. We have to communicate in English. It was the only one. So
right.
I don't know what type of accent I end up with. Greek, Japanese, Chinese. Yeah.
That's a great accent. That's a great accent. And so my last question before opening it up to the student audience is, it sounds like UF has been really good to you.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because you're still with UF.
Yeah, still with UF. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's been a really nice thing. So I'd like to just turn it over to the audience and see if you all have any questions for Dr. Peña.
Hi, Professor Peña. I was just wondering, having been working as a professor for many years, what is it now that kind of gets you out of bed in the morning about your job? Is it kind of discovering new things, or kind of the experimental design process, or just being outdoors, or something else?
Well, since I'm so close to retirement, I think that what motivates me is to finish things that I haven't been able to finish for so many years. So I have a list of different tasks that I must finish, and that's what I have to finish that one before the end of this year, because next year is going to be even worse, and then I'll be out of the job. So that's basically it, what motivates me to jump out of bed and go and finish what I haven't finished.
And is that, how was it at the other years, though, if I might add on to your question? How was it the other years? What was it that kept you going, looking at these teeny tiny
Well,
insects?
again, I think that I call the seminar Love and Hate, and I think it's basically that the whatever you're studying is never finish what your studies, and for more that you think that you have covered certain area, you really haven't covered everything, or you really haven't solved everything. It's just a part of that. So it's still like, okay, we can do a little bit more, or we can do a little bit more. And the people that are around you, I think that nurtures you, and I think the team that I have is very critical of me, and I'm very critical of them, so it goes back and forth. And they're not afraid to tell me that they are against what I think.
So they challenge
They challenge me, and I challenge them. So it's a pretty interesting relationship. There's some good arguments going on in there. So that's, I think that's part of the.
So there was this personal
there's-
aspect in
yeah.
addition to the mystery of.
Well, if you put something of yourself into your work, I think you're wasting your time and your life. And if you don't love, again, what you're doing, why are you doing it? That question that many people say, don't do what you don't love. And many people that come to work for me, after the first month, I already know if they're going to stay there or they're going to go.
Right, that's interesting.
Because it's going to show that they really are interested in that, or they are not interested. So it just comes from you.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to add something else, if I could. If you mentioned about retiring. When you retire, do you think you'll retire the part of your brain that thinks about pest control, or do you think you'll always just continue it as a passion?
Well, I think one goes through different phases in life. I cannot tell how I will be in my old years. Of course, I think I will try to keep myself occupied, and one of the things that I'm giving the hint to my colleagues is, well, when I retire, why don't you give me a stereoscope, a microscope? That would be nice to have. That would never happen, but basically that part will continue. I will be looking for insects, but I will do the other things that I didn't do in life, such as painting, which I love. Then
Nice.
that's the other part. Yep.
Hi, Dr. Peña. I have a question regarding, I guess, what interests you to follow certain mite-plant interactions? Like, do you continue your research based on what you've worked on, or you're like walking around one day in Gainesville and you see a particular plant and you're like, hey, it looks like it has some kind of damage. Maybe I should look into this.
Well, both. I regularly, here in Homestead, what I do many times after my lunch, I just walk around and I start grabbing whatever calls my attention. And sometimes I grab things and take them back to the lab, and I start looking, and I start finding, for instance, again, mites that they are present in Central America, Mexico, but they were not known to be here. And I send them to the taxonomist. Well, now we are in a different era, which anything that appears new, you become like a suspect. Why is he finding those insects that they are not, or those mites that they are not in this country? Is he smuggling them? How does he manage to find them? And I'm like, I've been doing that all my life. So I've been finding new species all my life. And so I had visitors from the State Department and blah, blah, blah. Well, how do you find that? I was just merely walking. I saw that fruit, I grabbed it, I brought it to my lab, and it wasn't mite that was not reported here. I'm sorry, but that was the case. So both, yeah, the answer to your question is both. It's some of the things I just did for mere curiosity, and the others is that a grower will report, I have this problem in my plant, and I'll go and I look and I become interested in that, or it's a problem that demands an action. So both things.
By choosing a career in science, you probably have faced many challenges. And what would you say would be a good advice that you could give students that are going into science, how to overcome these challenges? Or if you could give us an example of one of the most challenging things you've ever had to overcome?
Again, I think you have to have passion or love for what you choose in your life for your career, whatever feels you here and here. And I think I would say go for it and have all the energy for it, because whatever the obstacles, you're going to overcome them. And I mean, if you want to do what you love, you will conquer, doesn't matter what. I mean, here I am. I come from a really humble background, and of course I was lucky and to have scholarships, but I think I work a little bit hard, but mostly is your interest in what you're doing. One of the things that I tell the people that start working with me also is, after you don't have a dream with the insect or the mite that you're working with, you still are not into that subject, because they appear in my dreams. So again, you have to put your heart into things. To me, those that they don't get excited to whatever you do, you're wasting your time. I mean, life is so short and so precious to waste time. That's basically my advice. What do you think?
I think it's true.
Yeah.
I think when you love it, you go for it. But do you feel that there was an obstacle or something that was really challenging?
Oh yeah, there were several obstacles. And at the time when I arrived in Homestead, I think there were very few Latins in Homestead at that time. So I think there was a little bit of a different situation. And I think for several of the growers to have this person with this really, really strong accent approaching was saying, I will do this. And so I think they were a little bit, in coming from Colombia at that time, so that was that was like a light appearing there. So I think there were a lot of obstacles in that part, and there were other ones that I'm not going to mention here.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
So in your work, you've worked with biological control agents a lot, and I just wonder what your opinions are about the regulations in terms of introducing new species, if you think the regulations are strong enough, and if in your time you've ever worried about introducing biological control agents.
Yes, I think they are now pretty strong. And I think that has changed to what used to happen 20 years ago. People could bring these natural enemies with the basically minimal paperwork and release them with the minimal study. I think right now we are really doing a really thorough job. Of course, it's not the same as when you release these insects or mites, what's going to happen in nature, because anything can happen. But we really try to be sure that they're not going to attack or native butterflies or insects that are beneficial. So they're going to go against the habitat of nature that we find here. So it's more difficult right now, but it's necessary, and I agree with that. Yeah, unfortunately, that works both ways. And then when you go to some countries don't even let you take whatever it is in those countries, because they say, oh, okay, no, this is a part of our natural fauna. As many times those insects are being reared commercially, and you have paperwork problems that way. So I think it's basically science. So we cooperate with those countries, and I expect them to cooperate with me. But it is happening right now. People are protecting their country or whatever their resources more carefully than before.
And that's changed a lot in recent years.
Yeah, it has changed a lot, yes, absolutely. Okay.
And would you say, sort of going along with that question, would you say that the interest in both the surveillance, you had mentioned that now you become a suspect in addition, you know, when you're just taking a walk, but all of these changes that you've seen along your career path,
Yeah.
because there have been a lot of changes.
Yes.
Do you think that that's tied directly to the economics of the plants? Because you're studying, we didn't mention it earlier, but you're studying plants, or you, I mean, you might have mentioned it, fruit-bearing plants. So we have a big avocado industry here, the mangoes, the oranges in the middle of the state. Do you think it's gotten that way because of the economics involved? Or for other reasons?
It could be both. Again, I think that people are more, there are more people studying now those crops than there were 20 years ago. When I started, very few people were studying no avocado, but the other tropical fruit. Very few studies were done. Right now, you have people from almost everywhere in the tropical world studying those crops and covering that area. So, but again, work both ways. Most of the colleagues are really, really open to cooperate, and so I think that works that way.
And so my next to the last question.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you going to paint mites?
No. When I was a student, I even took a course called Insect Illustration, which I really like. But in my paintings, I have never painted insects.
No?
No.
So what do you like to paint?
It depends on the subject. I regularly paint landscapes. And lately, I'm taking classes to paint the human figure. And I think I'm making some progress. Not that great, but yeah, some progress. Yeah.
Well, hopefully you'll have many years to...
Hopefully, yeah. There's no comment.
And so if you would have a closing remark or closing idea or comment for our students, what would you want to tell them? Is there anything that you'd want to tell them that we haven't covered? Or
No, I think we said it. I said, whatever interests you in life, go for it. Don't let anyone tells you that that's not how you cannot achieve that.
Sort of follow your passion.
If I did it, do it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.